So tell me about the first Shadows. How did you decide to do it? How did it come about?
Well, we had a fundraiser that was leaving, which was Brenda's baby, but she didn't leave us in the lurch. So tell us what happened to get us there.
At the time, I was at the radio station, and I received monthly suggestions on promotions to do. And one of them was something similar to what we do now with the cemetery tour. And I went to Randy Poole, our manager, and said, "Hey, what do you think of this idea?" And he goes, "I think it's great, but I think it's too large for you and I to do. But I think it'd be a great project for Rotary. Why, as Rotarians, both of us, why don't we present it to Rotary?" So we went to Rotary, presented it, and the cemetery tour was born. I think it was a year later, maybe, that it started.
You brought it forward, and we agreed to do it, I think, the next year, because we'd been doing the house. You've done the house tour for how many years?
We've done the house tour for about 6 years.
And that was like a big
Christmas home
fundraiser.
tour.
And you announced, "I am not doing this anymore. We're done. We need another fundraiser."
That's true.
So,
That's true.
but you came in with the idea, and it was that, and doing a haunted hospital again, or a haunted house again, because
Yes,
you guys had done that.
We did the haunted hospital since we didn't have that. So we turned it over, and Jessica jumped right in and said,
Yeah. Well, we voted
will
as a
do that."
club. We'll do it for 1 year, and then the next year, if it goes well, we'll
see.
see, whatever. And then the next year we can do the hospital, the haunted house, whatever. So yeah, I said, yeah, I'll do it. I've never done anything like this before. And we got a committee together, and we just ran through every possible logistics that we could. Do we want to walk? And then my insurance brain is, no, we don't want to walk, the liability. Do we want to do this? How do we want to do this? And we don't want it to be scary. We want it to be historical. And so it developed into parking at the depot, taking a hay wagon. And the first year was just around coming in one way, going around the circle, and going out the same way and back to the depot, even though we had a lot of skits here. And we found some problems, like there was a lot of waiting for the next wagon to leave. This one was longer. How are we going to work this out? So at the end, we had another meeting of what do we do to fix it. So we came up with the logistics of how to fix it, and we've only made a few tweaks here and there. The map has been the same since, I guess, the second year.
Years.
Yeah, the second year until now. We've improved some stuff at the depot, having a golf cart for people who can't get on the wagon. That kind of came about by people saying, I wish I could go, but I can't get on the wagon. And another person, I'm so allergic to straw, I can't ride the wagon. Like, what can we do? So we came up with that. People don't want to wait in line, so we came up with benefactor tickets for the fast pass, so they don't have to, kind of mimicking amusement parks.
Also, the first year, the name of it was A Time to Remember.
Yeah,
Remember
prompting,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had the great idea of Shadows of Elma, which is stuck, and people say
Yeah.
it and like it, and I love the name.
As a marketing, I just didn't think that was quite right. It needed to be a little more intriguing.
Exactly, it is.
And very popular. And I think, I don't remember what year it was, but we had such a success, it was 1 o'clock before we were done when the last wagon.
That might have been the year one of the drivers messed up. He went in the wrong road, and it caused a backup because he had to make sure he had to go backwards, and it messed up all the timing, and we were so far behind that night. And we won't say names, but the man has never lived it down.
I don't think he's driven again.
He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. That stressed him out so bad.
True.
But so the first year, I think we had a fairly good crowd, but nothing huge.
did.
And ticket sales end at 9. It starts storming. Like, are we going to be able to do this? It wasn't raining, but in the distance there was some lightning. It was close to 9. We're getting everyone through, and then we were done. We got cleaned up, and then it just let loose on the rain. But we were like, hey, that was a pretty good thing. We were done at 9. The next night, because of Facebook and everyone talking about it, we had a huge crowd, and I don't know how late we went. I mean, we always said we'll go until the last person goes through, but it went a lot later. And I think we've perfected it, getting larger wagons and timing of everything. I mean, the ride through is going to be a good 45 minutes most years, if not a full hour. But the way it's timed, it's once you're in, and it just keeps moving.
And then adding a little bit of entertainment at the depot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of skits
There's a couple skits. We have straw bales for people to sit, so they can't stand, they can sit. If someone needs a chair, we can always find them a chair and make sure they have a place to sit. But most people don't love hanging out at the depot. I mean, I've had people say, oh, that's when I see my friends. And they bring their friends and they come as a group and they have a good time. They understand there's going to be a line and they're fine with it.
I think one of the neatest things was one of the first years a grandma had 2 grandkids. And she said, well, I'm just here because they told me they wanted to go on a hayride. And the next night they came back and she goes, and we came back because not only did we get a hayride, but we learned so much history.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter told me a story of when she was in high school and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. And the class president or school body president had to lead the Pledge of Allegiance over the intercom. And he paused correctly because that year, one of the skits talked about what is the correct way to say the Pledge of Allegiance and the pausing and where there should be a comma and where there shouldn't. And he actually had gone through, and then she noticed, and then he's like, yeah, you have to say it correctly. I mean, so she thought that was hilarious that it was being done correctly because of a skit. And now my kids have been involved, being in skits, working it. We get tons of kids who've just grown up with it. My daughter, who's moved 7 hours away for college, has driven back, and she will drive back again this year because she's like, I can't miss it. It's part of my childhood, as is my son. So I mean, they've grown up with it, and the drama of mother during the whole thing. Yeah.
And it has become the largest fundraiser that Flora Rotary does.
And it's become I think it's become a town thing, county thing,
Oh, 100%.
county event.
Definitely. And people have actually come and said, you know, we'd like to duplicate this in our town. And they've tried. I think the cemetery, the way Elmwood is set up, is perfect for the way that we've
with
done
the depot. Yeah, we use what we
Yeah.
have, and it works very well. I know Salem has done something. I know Fairfield has done something. Person just told me recently, I don't know if they're doing it Fairfield. They just haven't been able to match our success. And I think you're right. It's the layout. It's
I think
that
it's the
depot,
logistics.
and people can park down there. They go on the hay wagon. This cemetery is so unique, and that it's not all uniform. You got these trees. It just is kind of fun in the way it is, and we can spread out and do everything how we have it set. And then the writing, I'll go back to the writers. I started off doing most of the writing myself. I had 1 or 2 people help me, but they only did a little bit. And the next year, I think I might have done all of them. I don't remember exactly. But then after that, I've gotten people to help me. And so we divide, like in February, we start for the event in September, where we choose what we want to put in here. We talk about it. We try and pick the best skits for this year, like complimenting each other, having different subject matters. Oh, that one's sad. We need something more informational. That one's funny. We need a military. So we have a balance, and then making sure it's planned out very well once they're written in the cemetery, so it'll flow nicely. I mean, that's always the idea. It doesn't always work, but that's the idea. And then just have a fun time researching.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I am so happy to be out. Sometimes they let us out for special occasions. This is one of those, considering I'm going to talk about myself. My name is Amy Campbell. My full name is Amy Louisa Dyer Claire Latour Adkins Campbell. That really is, if you're interested in all my husbands. I was born in Xenia in 1876. When I became a young lady, the only thing I really wanted was to find a husband. I was in search of the perfect man. My first husband's name was Monessa Claire. He was from Shelby County. Oh, I loved him so much, and we were so happy. We actually had a son. His name is William. Everything was going just perfect till it stopped. And I'm not sure what happened, but he left me. Well, so now I'm looking for husband number 2. So back to Clay County I go, and I find him in William Latour. Now, William and I, we were pretty compatible. We had a little bitty farm on the south side of Xenia. Everything was going really well, but there's some men you can't trust. He was one of them. And off he went. He left me too. So my third and favorite husband is John Atkins. John Atkins was from Marion County. Oh, I love John Atkins so much, and he was just really awesome, and he helped me raise my son, and everything was perfect. But you know, there's some men you just can't trust, and he was one of them. And he left me in the middle of the night. Now I'm divorced for the 3rd time, then left 3 times. I finally found the perfect man. His name is William Campbell. I'm back in Xenia now. We lived on a very large farm on the north side of Xenia. Well, the farm was so big, and by this time my son is a grown man, and he's married. He even made me a grandmother. I have a granddaughter. So we move them all into the house. Everything is fine, the farm's going really, really well, and then the voices inside my head said, you might want to pay attention to what's going on in this house. And I'm like, who are you talking to? Are you talking to me? Everything's fine, you're making me paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. I found out my own husband was making eyes at my son's wife. So I just couldn't have that in my own home. I mean, they called it a jealous rage, but it wasn't jealousy. I was perfectly justified in taking the gun and shooting him in the chest. So I shot and killed him. He's dead on the ground. Well, I'm pretty happy, but I'm looking at him. And I'm thinking, man, he looks pretty peaceful. I think I want him to feel as bad as how I feel. So the voices inside my head said, you might want to do something about that. And I always listen to the voices inside of my head. So I took my handy dandy axe. I hit him in the head, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I split his skull wide open. And let me tell you right now, he wasn't too peaceful when I was done. And I was very happy. Well, the next thing you know, that gunshot, it woke up my neighbors. Oh my gosh, so the voices inside my head said, run, you better run far because you're gonna get in trouble for killing your husband. Even though I was a sane woman, I was completely justified in killing him. Who wouldn't kill an adulterer? But I listened to the voices and I ran into the woods and I hid for about 10 minutes. Then I was arrested. They caught me. They handcuffed me and they took me to Louisville. You know what I was talking about, those men you can't trust? My lawyer was one of them. He entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Do I look insane to you? I don't think so. I was perfectly justified in what I did. Well, joke's on him because guess what? The jury believed me. They said I was completely sane and guilty of murdering my husband. Well, they sent me to 20 years. So I'm hanging out in Louisville, up there at the jail. They don't really know what to do with me. All of a sudden now they're talking and they're thinking, maybe she's crazy after all. So they sent me to the Peoria State Psychiatric Hospital. I stayed there for a couple of years. Then they sent me to the Manteno State Psychiatric Hospital. I actually remained there till I died. That's where I died, 1946, at the age of 67, 22 years after I killed my husband. Well, being in the insane asylum's not so bad. My William, he visited me regularly. I don't know why I was trying to find the perfect man to husband when I had him in my own son. So William would come and visit me and we'd have long talks and it was really great, but he kept bringing that girl with him. I said, William, what are you doing talking to her? Why are you talking to her? You're here to see me. They said she was my granddaughter, but I don't believe it. That girl was not my granddaughter. She didn't look anything like me. William, seriously, quit talking to her. You're only here to see me. I don't understand why you're doing this. Don't make mommy get the axe. And that is the story of Amy Campbell, who is not buried at Elmwood, but is buried at the psychiatric cemetery in Manteno, Illinois. And she's in the book. There's a picture of her in the book.
You know, folks, it's a good thing I never let the fact that I was a woman, and a very petite woman at that, stop me from accomplishing big things in life. I'm proud of my accomplishments, both personal and professional. Before I continue my story, let me introduce myself. My name is Regina Joanne Perkowski Buckley. I was born on November 20th, 1912 to Polish parents, Agnes and Lucian Perkowski. I attended grammar school up until the age of 13, but then I had to stop. It was the Great Depression and everybody had to go to work. So I took a job at a sewing garment factory. But let me let you in on a little secret. I actually knew nothing about sewing. Lucky for me though, I was a quick learner. I learned how to run not only the business side, but the professional side as well. It was in that very factory where I met a handsome repair boy by the name of Albert Buckley. We later got married and we started our own garment factory here in Flora. That factory later split off into 9 separate factories. We named it Four Sisters Manufacturing. We named it that because, well, we had 4 daughters of our own. We didn't know it then, but a little later down the line, daughter number 5 would come along. We talked about changing it to 5 sisters, but ultimately we decided that 4 sisters had more of a ring to it. So we never did change the name to reflect the birth of daughter number 5. Four Sisters was located here in Flora, just slightly south of the Flora Public Library. Albert and I, we were very proud of our family and the life that we had built together, but sadly in 1946, Albert, who was only 7 years older than me, unexpectedly passed away. I was left all alone with 5 children and 9 factories to run. But I didn't let it stop me. I just took it in stride. I felt that I had 2 very important jobs in life, my family at home and then my factory. And as a young female business owner, I certainly encountered a lot of prejudice and resistance. But I'd like to think that my mutual respect for everybody and my willingness to learn made me stand tall despite my petite stature. I felt that God had blessed our family and that it was part of our duty to give back to our community. I did so through civic duty and generous donations to local community events. I was a lifelong member of St. Stephen's Catholic Church, as well as a member of St. Anne's Altar Society, Illinois Youth Commission, and the Business and Professional Women's Club. And I'm also proud to say that I helped start the July 4th All-American Boy and Girl Contest that is still held every year in Flora. I hope that once a month I would have my factory family come and we would meet for a monthly breakfast, even after I retired. And I would like to think that their willingness to come back year after year, month after month, was a true testament to how much everybody respected me. I never did remarry, but I did keep the sewing manufacturing in the family until I finally sold out at the age of 70. But I didn't stop there. I continued to manage and run Kern Manufacturing, which was also in Flora, located in Industrial Park. But I officially finally retired in 1992 at the age of 80. I passed away just a few months short of my 100th birthday in August of 2012. I survived by my sister Lucille Dingman of Flora, our 5 beautiful daughters who all lived in various different states, 10 grandchildren, and 11 great-grandchildren. My life was a true testament that small people can certainly accomplish big things. Thank you.
Got any extra room on there?
Oh, here.
Toss a couple kids.
Hey, you smelly bum. Don't get up there with these people.
Now, I take offense to that. I am no bum. I am a blown in the glass bow. I've got my spindle stick carrying the banner. I'm looking for an easy marker plot. I've been padding the hoof for a while, but I'm on the fly now. You're the bull, right? This is going to the bone orchard?
Anybody know what that means? I don't understand what he's talking about.
Let me interpret. These people don't speak hobo.
No, they don't.
You know, we have our own language. What he said was that he is a trustworthy hobo and that he carries everything he owns on his back, on his spindle, and that we've been on foot for a while, but we're going to catch a train tonight, and that he keeps in motion so that he doesn't pick up a ticket for loitering, and that he's looking for a cheap place to sleep, and free is best. And is this going to the cemetery? And are you the train officer?
I don't know what you mean. This is not a train. This is a wagon. A wagon, not a train.
All right, folks, let me explain. I'm a hobo. we popped up around the Civil War when there was a lot of men who were out of work, and well, the train was the only way to get by. So we were feeling a little adventurous and looking for a way to make money. So we'd hop on a train, go look for work. We'd keep moving though. We'd move to the next job in the next town by the next train. And we weren't quite sure where the name hobo came from, but we knew it meant homebound. And it popped up somewhere around the 1890s. But with harsher times, popped up more hobos, especially after the 1870 recession, the Great Depression, and the World War II.
So what you need to understand about hobos is that we have ethics and we have standards. We are not tramps and we are not bums. We work. We're always looking for work. So if you have any jobs, we're looking, always.
Go, Joe.
We are, we have standards. As a matter of fact, in 1889, we had us a convention over there in St. Louis, and we set out 16 guidelines. Now, a tramp travels, but you have to make him work. You can't, he's not looking. And bums, well, bums don't go anywhere and bums never work. So that's the difference in us. But we have guidelines. There are rules to being a hobo.
And in St. Louis, they came up with 16 different guidelines for us to conduct ourselves with. All right, so I'm going to read these here. Number 1, decide your own life. Don't let anyone else run or rule you in your life. Obviously wasn't married. Okay, number 2. When in town, always respect the local law and officials, and try to be a gentleman at all times. You know, I don't see the bums and the tramps being very happy about these guidelines. You know, it's something they didn't want to do. And here's one that try to stay clean and boil up whenever possible. Anybody know what boil up means? What? Take a bath is right. And number 4 is something that the bums and the tramps will not do. Always try to find work, even if it's temporary. Try to seek out jobs that nobody else wants, and by doing so, you not only can help the community, maybe a business, but you can assure that the next time you come through, that you might have a job.
So you see, folks, us hobos, we're just down on our luck. We're still trying to make an impact on society. We got our own code, our own language. We even have our own signs. We ride up and let other hobos know, hey, this is a safe place you can go.
Now I'm going to tell you one more time. You are not riding with these people. This is a wagon. It is not a train. If you want to ride on the wagon, the ticket line's over there.
All right, folks, we'll try the next one. We'll cover with the Moonlight tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Have a good evening.
Hello, and welcome to Elmwood Cemetery. My name is Sarah Wilson, and this cemetery came to be after the death of my baby boy William in 1854. He was the first person buried here. My family and I settled here in 1852, and I am the sister of Samuel White, who is considered the founder of Flora. Now, Samuel was only 21 at the time that he founded Flora, and our family had heard a rumor that there was going to be a railroad built between St. Louis and Cincinnati. So Samuel bought land right along the rumored path. He was right, there was a railroad that was going to be built.
but we were a little afraid that the railroad station would be built in the town of Mooresville instead of here. Do you guys know about Mooresville? It was a little town just west of Flora on what's now Old Route 50. It's in an area that I'm told you guys call the West Y, and there's a restaurant there called Julian's. Yeah, that whole area was its very own town at the time, and we were just sure that they were going to get the railroad station. Come to find out, they didn't even really want the railroad station there, but we didn't know that at the time. Samuel was adamant that the railroad station would be built on his land. He deeded 1/2 interest of 40 acres to a man named John Brown. John was a railroad trustee at the time. But we all put our heads together and thought, what could we offer the railroad that maybe Mooresville couldn't? Our town didn't have a name yet. That's it. John had a young daughter, and Samuel had a meeting with him and said, hey John, if you put the railroad station on our land instead of in Mooresville, we will name our town after your young daughter. Her name was Flora, and that is how our town came to be called Flora, which was the perfect name for it, really, because this whole area was covered in wildflowers and prairie grasses, and oh, it was so pretty. The town of Flora was laid out in 1854, and my brother Samuel had an important role. He was the first business owner. He owned the first hotel. He was the first blacksmith. He owned the first general store. He owned the livery stable. He did so much. In fact, he was the first person to build a house in Flora. It was a log cabin, and it stood very close to where the U.S. Bank is now downtown. In fact, it was really close to the intersection downtown that so many of you drive through on a daily basis. So the next time you drive through town, use your imagination and think to yourself, I wonder what that little log cabin looked like sitting there in 1854. 1854. What a year. It was a good year in so many ways, but it was also a very sad year. That's the year we realized we needed a cemetery. A nearby farmer named Mr. Samuel Kinnaman donated his cornfield, and it was cleared out, marked into a cemetery, and my little William here was laid to rest in what's now known as the Samuel White Plot, which is located just right over there with a little fence around it. I had a broken heart, and sadly I died less than a year later. They buried me right beside William. We're together now. But we're both so happy that you stopped by tonight to hear our story and to hear the stories of so many others. I know you're going to meet a lot of interesting characters tonight, so enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Good evening. General George Patton said, wars may be fought with weapons, but they're won by men. And it's the spirit of the men who follow and the man who leads that gain the victory. I had the privilege of being both of those men while serving as an Air Force pilot in the United States military. My name is Leo Hediger, and I served this great country for many years as a pilot during World War II, the Korean conflict, and Vietnam. I had the privilege of being the commander, which is signified by these pins on my shoulders, of a B-24 Liberator bomber of the 460th Bombardment Group in the 15th Air Force. Now, the 460th Bombardment Group was responsible for tactical missions and support in southern France and in Italy. Now, we were stationed in Spinozzola, Italy, and we got called into action, and we got involved in a firefight over Linz, Austria, where we took on fire. It damaged our plane. I had to crash land the plane, and luckily I found an auxiliary airstrip in Yugoslavia. I crash landed the plane there, and myself and all 10 crew members walked away from that. Luck was still on our side when a group of Yugoslavian partisans, they risked their lives to lead us to safety. And then for the next week, we traveled only by night to make our way to the Adriatic Sea, where we were to be picked up by a British PBY seaplane, one of the most recognizable aircraft used during World War II. They were to pick us up and take us to Naples, Italy. Now, I was considered a hero for my actions during that incident, and I was awarded the Air Medal with oak leaf clusters. Now, that medal is awarded to any service member that distinguishes themselves by meritorious achievement while participating in an aerial flight. I was also awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. The first Distinguished Flying Cross was awarded to Charles Lindbergh by President Calvin Coolidge in 1927 on his homecoming return from his transatlantic flight. The Distinguished Flying Cross is the highest medal that the Air Force awards. And it's awards to any service member that distinguishes themselves by acts of heroism or extraordinary achievements while participating in an aerial flight. Now, like I said, they called me a hero for my actions, but it took the actions of all 10 crew members and myself to lead us back to Italy and then ultimately on home. And I believe that anybody else would have done the same thing I had done had they been in my situation. I was also involved in the largest air raid that World War II ever saw. August 1st, 1943, we were called in to bomb the Ploiești oil refinery in Romania. Those oil refineries were suspected of producing over 1/3 of the fuel oil to the Nazi war machine. 178 bombers flew in like a tidal wave under the radar, but that made us also susceptible to enemy fire. And many aircraft went down that day and many lives were lost. And that day is now known as Black Sunday. Between World War II and the Korean conflict, I was in the reserves, but I was called up to report to Portland, Oregon. My wife, Lucille, she worked for the base commander, and he had told her to pull every pilot's name that had training hours on the T-6 spotter plane. I literally had 5 hours of training on that plane, and my wife pulled my name to go to Korea. Now, that T-6 spotter plane is a plane with the pilots in the front and the observers in the back. We would fly in low and slow, and we'd drop flares over the enemy so that the bombers knew where to drop their bombs on the enemy. Well, on one particular mission, we took on fire, and our aircraft was severely damaged, and the spotter was severely injured. I told him to eject, but his canopy wouldn't open. They told me to bail out, but my canopy wouldn't open either. My landing gear wouldn't extend, so I had to crash land that plane as well. Now, unfortunately, the spotter lost both of his legs in that incident, but he did survive, and I walked away with a small scratch on my leg. That's when I earned my second Distinguished Flying Cross in my career. I flew 31 missions in World War II. I flew 73 missions in the Korean conflict. Now, it wasn't a conflict, but I was called up during the Cuban Missile Crisis to deliver 55 paratroopers to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida, where we had to sit on the runway for a week, awaiting our orders to drop off those guys over Cuba. Then, I was called into Vietnam. I flew a C-124 cargo plane. I flew 16 missions to Vietnam, 2 to Cambodia, and 1 to Laos. Now, Cambodia and Laos were off limits. And that was under CIA directive. So don't tell anybody I said that, because that's top secret. So I retired from the military as a lieutenant colonel, as indicated by the scrambled eggs on the bill of my cap. I returned to Florida with my wife Lucille and my son Frank. I operated and owned Hediger Jewelry Store for 50 years. I was also installed on the Florida Fire Department in 1966, and I retired from there in 1987. I was the fire chief from 1981 to 1986. Then I was also very instrumental in the Florida airport. I served as the airport board chairman for 15 years, and I served on the airport authority for 25. Again, my name is Leo Hediger. Thank you for listening to my story. Have a good night.
Good evening. My name is Dr. E.C. Park Jr. But on July 19th, 1891, I was called to step into my other job which is the corner of Clay County. See, I was called to the James family tragedy that night, and my job that night was to discover the truth. But the question is, can you handle the truth? Right here is the family monument, and it's for Henry James and, hold on a second, there's no other names here. It just says family.
We have names.
Yeah. The case that night involved Henry James and his wife Elizabeth, his son Dean James, his daughter Minnie Cheney, and her husband George Cheney, and their 6-month-old baby.
We were considered a highly intelligent and esteemed family in the neighborhood.
Yeah, you were considered crazy. You were known to talk about committing suicide.
Don't listen to that. I was a respected farmer with an isolated farm about a mile northeast of Flora with my beloved family. We led a happy life.
No, we did not. I hated it here.
Who's to blame for that? You're the one that brought shame down on all of us.
Now don't you say that to her. Can you blame her for trying to escape the house?
I just wanted to get out of here. I just wanted to live with someone who loved me.
I'm sorry, Minnie. I don't know why I let you and the baby come back.
Be quiet, all of you. You're ruining my fun. See, whiskey is meant to be savored, not fought over.
You know, when we were married, I was in love. Just 13 months before the tragedy.
Did you catch that? Married 13 months with a 6-month-old baby.
That baby's awful strong for a premature baby.
Who are you kidding? Who are you trying to fool? Premature? Ha!
You two brought shame down on the James family name. We were a respectable family. Then you're nothing but a...
Hey, you don't talk to my wife like that. Why? Oh, why did I let us come back?
As we were investigating this tragedy, we found out about a shotgun wedding which brought strife in this family and some heavy drinking.
Heavy drinking? Wonder where those rumors came from.
And then we heard about Henry James and that he was insane.
Insane? Ha! All I wanted was...
He was crazy. I hated him. We would fight, and at times, I just wanted it to end. I wanted him to end.
Now let me tell you about the events of that night. It was about 3 a.m. when the neighbors started to gather, spreading the news about the James home being on fire. There was a large group that gathered that night to help put out that fire.
They fought so hard to save us, but it was too late. We were already dead.
The house, it burned to the ground. And the bodies? Now I'm sorry about these gruesome details, but there's no other way to tell it, so I guess I'll just say it. 4 bodies were found in that house. There was Minnie and the baby, and they were found in the corner of the dining room with the baby being in its bed. There was a body in the doorway by the dining room and the bedroom, and a 3rd body was in the center of the room. Notice I said bodies, not names. The bodies were nearly fully consumed in the fire. We thought that was all of the victims until we found what we believed was an additional body, making the death count of 4 adults and 1 little baby. Now we had to figure out what happened. Based upon where the bodies were in the home and the fact that Minnie was still in her day clothes. That was even witnessed by the neighbors who arrived at the home to put the fire out. And they also tried to rescue her. No one was in bed at the time of the fire, except for that little baby.
The fire happened in the middle of the night. No one was in bed. That farmhouse was only 1.5 stories, and they all were on the 1st floor. How could this be?
I'll tell you how. I was shot in the head. And our baby.
We examined Mrs. Cheney and discovered that she had been shot. Well, let's just say that baby had a a really, really bad head wound. Now all the other bodies were so badly charred, we could never tell what had happened to them.
And I was left to clean up the mess. I went through the house looking for clues, but couldn't find any.
Never found my 3 gold watches, did you? He acted so sad about our deaths, but all he wanted to do is make some money off of our deaths.
George Cheney discovered that the family valuables were all gone, but luckily for us, we had a suspect.
Ha! Me was arrested. Who is me? Just a simple peddler making my way through the area. They blame me because I was Italian, and I was a stranger. They say I shot them. They say I burnt a baby. They say I tore down a house just to cover me tracks. All for what? A few watches.
Gold watches!
Ha! I'm Italian, not a monster. By the way, anyone need a watch?
Hey!
At first we believed that the murderer possibly was the Italian peddler. We believed he might have committed this crime and then escaped after starting the fire. We even arrested the man, but later had to let him go for lack of evidence. And then we started hearing the stories.
Yep, you heard about me. I am a drunk.
People said that Dean James was a reckless fellow when he had been drinking and may have made some threats towards his father. I even heard that there had been threats of murder and suicide.
No, that was Henry. You leave my baby alone.
Thanks, Mama. I was told that the father and son quarreled for some time, and it's the general opinion that either the father or the son had committed the crime and then set the house on fire and committed suicide.
Well, Henry was the crazy one. He made all the threats.
And I was still here to clean up the aftermath. And after a little short while, I remarried. And I was married to my wife for 42 years. And we are both buried here in Elmwood Cemetery.
Did your second wife get her name on her headstone?
Why, yes. What are you getting at? You know it cost per letter on a tombstone, and there was the whole family. I couldn't afford it.
What is she getting at? Our tombstone names our murderer and only says Henry James and family. We had names too.
I am Minnie Chaney.
I am James Dean.
And I... Yep. And I am Elizabeth James. And we are the victims.
It always bothered me that I didn't know the truth about what happened, but I'll never forget their names. Will you?
My name is Father James Thompson, but I was known to my family and friends as just Jim. After growing up in Clay County, I enrolled in seminary and became a priest. I was invited to celebrate my first solemn Mass right here at home at St. Stephen Church on Christmas Day, 1934. I later served as a Navy chaplain during World War II and eventually moved to Dallas, Texas, where I assisted at Holy Trinity Catholic Parish. Now let me take you back to Friday, November 22nd, 1963. After starting out gray and rainy, the weather became beautifully sunny and 70 degrees. Downtown Dallas was bustling with activity as 200,000 people lined the streets for a special visit. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see our country's president, John F. Kennedy, and First Lady drive by, waving and smiling. Now, I had just finished eating my lunch and was watching the TV news coverage of the 10-mile winding route as the dark blue presidential limousine continued through the downtown. But suddenly, there was confusion, loud noises, yelling and crying, and the motorcade began to speed away.
There has been an attempt, as perhaps you know now, on the life of President Kennedy. He was wounded in an automobile driving from Dallas Airport into downtown Dallas, along with Governor Connolly of Texas. They've been taken to Parkland Hospital there, where their condition is as yet unknown. We have not been told their condition. At Dallas, in the downtown hotel room, a group had been gathered to hear President Kennedy when he was waiting his arrival. Let's switch down there now, where Eddie Barker of KRLD is on the air.
I rushed to Father Oscar Huber's office, our senior pastor. Father Huber and I had both been Midwestern-raised boys. He from Perryville, Missouri. Father Huber and I left immediately for Parkland Hospital, where we were allowed to drive through the lines of security. Father Huber hastily exited while I parked the car. By the time I was escorted into Trauma Room 1, Father Huber was already reciting Latin words over the body of President Kennedy, mostly covered in a white, crisp sheet, but pulled down just enough to see his forehead. These Latin words, they translated into, "I absolve you from your sins in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Amen." He dipped his thumb in holy oil and traced the sign of the cross on President Kennedy's forehead. Father Huber and I were never told, but we knew that the president was dead. Jackie Kennedy leaned over and she kissed the president's forehead. For a moment, each of us held one of the First Lady's hands, and we extended our sympathy. She was clearly in a state of shock, but somehow still composed. She thanked us and asked us to pray for the president. We left the room and walked past all of the Secret Service agents, doctors, nurses, police, and reporters.
The priests who were with Kennedy, the two priests who were with Kennedy say that he is dead of his bullet wounds. That seems to be about as close to official as we can get at this time. They did see the president just a few moments ago, and this is the bulletin that has just cleared from Dallas, that the two priests who were in the emergency room where President Kennedy lay after being taken from the Dallas street corner where he was shot say that he is dead. Our man Dan Rather in Dallas reported that about 10 minutes ago too.
Father Huber and I drove back to the parish in silence. I gripped the steering wheel, realizing that something was on my right hand, and it was just a bit of blood. President Kennedy's blood. You see, Mrs. Kennedy had refused to remove her blood-stained gloves and dress and was still wearing them at the hospital. And even after she and the president's body arrived back in Washington, D.C. that night, she had famously repeated to several others, "Let them see what they have done."
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know.
After that day around 1 o'clock in the afternoon that truly changed the world, my resolve was to continue to serve as a priest. And I eventually retired after honorably serving, and I passed away in 1982. I returned home to Clay County one final time when my casket was buried in a simple graveside ceremony right down the road at St. Stephen's Cemetery. Thank you for listening to my story.
Hello. I am here to offer you some advice when hiring your next housekeeper. 1. Check all references. 2. Find out why she left her previous employer. And 3. Never let your husband hire the housekeeper. Do you ever wish you could just go back in time and get a do-over? I wish I could get a do-over when interviewing for my last housekeeper. Say, I have an idea. Let's just do that right now. Hello, Mrs. Bible, is it? Hello. I'm Laura Malinsky, and this is my husband.
Hello.
Hello. Ernest Malinsky. I believe the two of you have met previously.
Yes, Mrs. Malinsky. My name is Elsie Bible, and I have met Mr. Malinsky before, but it's been many years since we've seen each other.
Yes, I remember now. Yeah, it is good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Oh, I remember Essie all right. I always had my eye on her.
So I'm looking over your references and your employment history, and it says that you've just returned to work after a long absence.
Yes, ma'am. I returned to work at the shoe factory 2 years ago after I lost my dear Mr. Bible. And trust me, it didn't take very much effort to lose him either.
So what did you do before that? Please tell me a little about yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I left my father's house at the age of 18 whenever I married Mr. Cope. We had several children together, but he was a mean man, and he deserted me after 8 years of marriage. I normally don't talk so freely about these things, but I feel like I can trust you both. I feel like we have a connection. And maybe, if they believe this sob story, they'll hire me for their housekeeper.
You poor thing. It had to have been around that time that we met.
Yes, sir, it might have been around that time. I know that after such desertion, I had to find work. I had to find a way to support myself. It's not easy being in a small town like this and being a divorcee. But I had a few plans up my sleeve. I was going places, and I would find myself a better situation.
So you were able to find work?
Yes, ma'am. I became a housekeeper for Mr. and Mrs. Havel Bible. I was with them for a period of time before Mrs. Bible became desperately ill. I tried my very best to help her and to help her to heal, but it was no use. She passed away. I stayed on with Mr. Bible afterwards to give him some stability. My friends, that's what you call a well-laid plan.
That was very kind of you. You seem like a really generous woman.
Thank you.
You know, Laura, I think we should just consider hiring her.
Now, if I can convince the old woman, and I do mean old, would you look at her? I don't know what a fine man like Ernest ever saw in someone like her.
But you ended up marrying Mr. Bible, and you had a son with him?
Yes, ma'am, but after a decent period of mourning, of course. Mr. Bible was devastated after the loss of his wife. The compassion and the sympathy that I felt for him, it blossomed into a beautiful love. I do have such a romantic heart. And yes, we do have a son together, but don't worry about him. He won't be a problem at all. In fact, working for the both of you, being your housekeeper, will provide a better life for both of us. Especially if this goes the way that I have it planned.
Well, that's it. Mrs. Bible, you are hired.
Oh, sir, thank you so much. You will not regret this.
Wait!
Let me show you around our home.
Thank you.
Oh, I was supposed to get my do-over, and he went and did it again. He hired her as our housekeeper. There's something funny about that lady, don't you think? Something's just not quite right. Well, I didn't figure it out until it was too late. I died September 26, 1925. Ernest told everyone that it was due to bad watermelon. Did you know that only 6 weeks after I died, Ernest and Essie got married? Well, thank goodness for nosy neighbors. They were suspicious, so they put pressure on the police. In December, They exhumed my body and sent it to St. Louis for testing. Come to find out, I had been poisoned with arsenic. They arrested the two of them the very next day. And Essie started to sing like a canary. She admitted to poisoning me, but she claimed that Ernest had nothing to do with it, so they let him go. But I don't know, they got married awfully quick after I died.
But I was lonely.
Likely story. She was sentenced to life in prison where she started to sing some more. Come to find out, that first husband, Mr. Cope, did not desert her. He kicked her out for trying to poison him.
I was bored with that life. I deserved something so much better. What was I supposed to do?
She then went to work for Mr. and Mrs. Bible, where she murdered Mrs. Bible before staying on as Mr. Bible's housekeeper.
She was sickly anyway. I just helped her along a little bit.
That was very kind of you.
Thank you.
She lived with Mr. Bible until the court convicted them of living in adultery. It was only then that they got married.
But they were married for 12 years and had a son.
She killed her husband. She claimed she was bored with him too.
Lady, he was boring. You never met him.
She then went to work for us, where I died shortly after due to poisoned watermelon.
Ma'am, would you like something to eat? How about some watermelon?
No.
No?
No.
Well, you look so upset tonight. How about I pour you some water?
Okay, I could use a drink.
Drink up. This will make you feel better.
Thank you.
And by the way, the poison that I gave to her, it wasn't in the watermelon. It was in the water.
Sisters, sisters, there were never such devoted sisters. Never had to have a chaperone, no sir. I'm here to keep my eye on her. Caring, sharing, every little thing that we are wearing.
Minnie?
When
Minnie,
a certain-
I'm
What?
sorry,
What?
Minnie. I don't want these people to get the wrong idea.
The wrong idea about what, Geraldine?
And you know, I love you. We did not share our clothes.
Oh, stop. And stop calling me Minnie. I hate that nickname, and you know it. I prefer to be called Jerry.
Jerry is my name. You stole it.
You weren't using it. I borrowed it. You go by Geraldine. I needed a good stage name. Minnie just didn't fit. Marie was a little too proper.
It's my name, Jerry. Geraldine. Jerry. Geraldine.
I needed a good stage name. Sorry.
Ridiculous. Well, I have some press that I would like to share about my sister because...
Oh, wait, no. I made Jerry famous. I made Jerry famous. Hang on. I have press first. Okay. Her 2 appearances are high spots. She steps on the stage and wows the audience with a series of encores in which they get more than their money's worth. What she doesn't know about terpsichore isn't worth mentioning. Jerry is the girl who gets applause before she comes out on the stage. They called me the show saver. The it girl.
The it girl of burlesque.
Still an it girl.
Jerry McCauley has the pretty face of a doll. The plumpness is accounted much more stylish than the boyish form. She has a satisfactory voice and a great deal of daring. When she works up steam, nothing can stop her. She does nothing by halves, and since she is supposed to agitate her torso, vibrate her anatomy, and shiver and shake, she sees to it that no part of her body is ever left motionless.
Okay,
She shimmies as if her life depended on it.
Okay, that's one of the more descriptive reviews.
But it is not the whole of who you are. You see, Minnie is my older half-sister. We were both born in Sailor Springs. She was born Marie Cockrell in 1905.
Oh, whoa! Why do we have to talk about how old we are?
It doesn't matter. You're dead.
Go ahead.
As I was saying, I was born Geraldine Hunt in 1917. When I was 6 years old, I had went to my sister's house. She had gotten married at the age of 16, and I went for a visit. Her and her husband got into a terrible argument. I had to leave and get help, and then shortly after that, my family helped my sister leave town.
Word of advice, do not marry a professional gambler, especially at the age of 16, because you're going to lose that bet. They had to help me move to St. Louis. My first job was as a showgirl, and then I was an assistant to magicians, and later I went to Chicago and started a career in burlesque.
I got to visit her in Chicago once. It was beautiful. I got up to the stage to visit with my sister, and her manager told me I was better to go down the street to the Piggly Wiggly and see if they were hiring. I never figured out if that was a jab at me or at show business.
It had to be show business. You are now and have always been beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I never had that problem. I became a headliner. I actually made up a pretty big name for myself as Jerry McCauley. I actually got to work with Lou Costello from Abbott and Costello in Legs and Laughter in 1931. I'll let you decide who brought the legs and who brought the laughter.
And she was also arrested. Our family was mortified at the time. Eventually it worked out, and it did make for some good stories for us to tell later on.
And I need to defend myself. It was 1929. I was on the stage doing my performance. I got done and I left the stage. They wanted an encore. I was mid-costume change, so I went out anyway. I left the stage. They wanted another encore, so I went out with a little bit less. And you get the picture. Anyway, happened to be a police officer in the audience, and he proclaims that my performance was indecent and obscene. I ended up in court over this. My attorney was trying to prove that it was art and an athletic performance and distinctly not indecent. The police officer shows up with some of my costume, somehow. Upon seeing this, the judge decides he needs to see this performance to make his decision. But he did. So I had to do the dance in court. Needless to say, no charges were pressed.
Okay, I will agree that all of your vibrating and shimmying and shaking is athletic. You sure did live a colorful life compared to mine. I stayed here in Clay County, and I married Orville Stanley when I was 16. We lived here together and shared 27 wonderful years of marriage until his death in 1960.
I was not so lucky in love. Including that gambler we talked about earlier, I was also married once to professional wrestler Ray Steele. In total, I was married 5 times. I didn't have a huge family. My sister had an amazing family here in Clay County. She had 9 children, 32 grandchildren, 76 great-grandchildren, and 36 great-great-grandchildren before she passed. And she was so blessed with love for each and every one of them, and they loved her.
Thank you. That is so nice. That is what I would like you to remember about my sister. Her heart. Not her fame that she's made as Jerry, but my sister couldn't have children of her own. So when she got a little bit older, she retired from the stage and decided that she was going to help the women who had children that they couldn't take care of find homes. She would ride the train from northern Illinois to southern Illinois and deliver these children and babies to their adopted families. She's changed so many lives. She even brought one child right here to Clay County and delivered one in Indiana to our sister.
And I would have done more of that if I could have. I passed away in 1967 at the age of 62.
I died at 93, and I'm buried right here in the cemetery with my beloved husband.
And so, for your encore, Lord help the mister that comes between me and my sister.
And Lord help the sister that comes between me and my man.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Charles Workman, better known in my day as Charlie Polka Dot. I was born in 1870, and I died here in Florida at my son Gussie's house in 1941 at the age of 71. Now, back in my day, we didn't have the opportunity that a lot of you young folks have these days. You can go get yourself an education in one of those fancy colleges and do just about anything you want. Heck, you don't even need one of those fancy diplomas. You can go get yourself a job right on the street and make a decent living at it. Well, back in my day, it wasn't always that easy. We had to go do hard jobs like logging, working in a mill, or bricklaying, or masons, or shopkeeping, or farming. A lot of dangerous jobs that didn't pay a whole lot of money. Now, sure, we had some professional jobs out there, but most folks couldn't afford the education it took to get those positions. Now, like many other men my age, we had to work various jobs because we didn't have one career throughout the span of our lives. We had to provide for our families. In fact, I had a wife and 3 children to provide for. So, I worked various jobs for a time until one day I found my calling, my dream job, what I was made to do. Sanitary engineer. Well, you may say, Polka Dot, what is a sanitary engineer? Well, I wish I could tell you it was a glorious job with clean pipes and running water and flushing toilets, but back then, there was no such thing as indoor plumbing or flushing toilets or wastewater management corporations. No. We did our business in the outhouse. And my glorious job was to clean out that outhouse. It's a job everybody envied, as you can imagine. Well, some of you might be a little too young to have ever heard or seen of an outhouse. Well, most likely you've seen a porta potty. An outhouse is quite similar to a porta potty, but it's a more permanent structure that most every family had on the property. And throughout the course of the day and evening, they would visit it quite regularly, as you could imagine. A lot of thought had to go into building a porta potty. Where you would put it, how big to make it, your ventilation, how many seats, especially how deep to dig your pit. Because there's nothing worse than going outside on your throne in the middle of the night and hitting a pile of poo-poo that hasn't been cleaned up yet. And you also want to make sure it's sturdy, because nothing makes a bigger mess than a blown over outhouse, especially if someone's inside of it when it topples over. Ugh. Now, the outhouses were generally built in the back of the property and had a hinged portal on the back for clean out. I had a horse and buggy with a wagon I'd pull behind it, most likely through an alley, and I would lift that portal up and clean it up and move on to the next job. Now, the amount of visits I had to make depended on the size of the pit, how many pits there were, and the size of the family. Now, I've heard people say that they think their doo-doo doesn't stink, but I can tell you, everybody's doo-doo does indeed stink. Well, every day for a sanitary engineer might be a crappy one. I had a valuable job to perform for people. Now, I met a lot of people in town, and I made some friends, but throughout the day, I wasn't invited inside for luncheons or lemonades. I didn't shake a lot of hands throughout the day either. In fact, most of my customers would stand upwind to me while I was working for some reason. That didn't bother me. I'd talk to them while I cleaned up their number 2s, and I'd move on and go on my stinky little way. Well, while I had been buried in dung more than paperwork in my career, I can tell you I was glad to provide the service I did. And there was some job security for me too, by the way. There was always some mess to clean up. Through the Depression, through the wars, through plagues, and many other tough times at the turn of the century. But I was glad to do it for this community, and I met a lot of nice people that I considered my friends until I died in 1941 in December. Well, you folks may go home tonight and sit on your nice clean thrones and do your business, but when you clean up and flush it and everything's nice and easy, just remember, like most things these days, it wasn't always like that. Have yourselves a good evening and enjoy the rest of your tour here at Elmwood.
I am not here to talk about politics, whether it is right or wrong for us to be there. The truth is, we were there and we fought. We were young guys, terrified, seeing things that no one should ever have to see, and doing things that no one should ever have to do. We were there because our country asked us to, and we believed in our country and the freedoms that it gave us. So, I was there fighting, and then later dying. My name is David Worthy. Vietnam was a different kind of war. The Viet Cong had perfected guerrilla warfare. They could attack us and then seemingly disappear into thin air. You never knew when they were going to attack or where they were going to attack from. In 1966, we figured it out. Tunnels. Since the 1940s, the VC had been fighting someone, whether it's the French, the Australians, or the Americans. It was then that they started digging. Using village laborers, they would dig out these tunnels using just regular old gardening tools and baskets to carry out the dirt. The tunnels were crooked and narrow, with U-bends. You couldn't shoot straight or use grenades, and those bends would trap poisonous gases. Each level was separated by a watertight trapdoor. The trapdoor would prevent any poisonous gases or floodwaters from getting into the tunnel. They even had these trapdoors that would make you think you're at a dead end, when really, you were at a door that led to a system of other passageways. The whole place was booby-trapped. They had underground kitchens, air raid shelters, hospitals, latrines, all sorts of things. Some of the tunnels would go down 18 feet and cover over 200 miles. The VC would even bury their dead in the tunnels. If they couldn't bury them above ground, they'd bury them into the walls of the tunnels. Can you imagine crawling in a deep, dark tunnel with dead bodies in the walls? Those tunnels caused many nightmares. Once we found out about the VC's tunnels, we had to find a way to fight them in the tunnels. So, the job of the tunnel rat was created, and the job deserved its name. We were not recruited, but rather we volunteered. I volunteered. A special requirement of the job was you had to be under the height of 5'6". I was 5'5", so I fit that requirement. I was a good marksman growing up hunting in Clay County, and also I was willing to take the risk. We had to crawl through these dark tunnels, hoping that the enemy would not find us. We had to be able to think under this insane amount of pressure, so you know what was okay to touch and what wasn't. There were natural enemies to contend with, like rats, spiders, scorpions, bats, all sorts of things. Some were there naturally, and others were placed there by the VC. You were only armed with a flashlight, a knife, and a pistol. That was all you could carry down there, so your most important tool was your ability to stay calm in those claustrophobic hellholes. Some guys just couldn't take it. They would come out screaming and crying. They would never go back in. We were on search and destroy missions. Our job was to, well, kill the hiding enemy, plant explosives, and destroy any counterintelligence means that we could find. If we did come across an enemy, we'd have to fight them in hand-to-hand combats. You know, it was their territory. They knew where they were going, but we did not. You never knew what was waiting for you around one of those bends. Death was what was waiting for me. The fear was you'd go into a tunnel and you never come out. I never did. I was overtaken by poisonous nerve gas, one of their booby traps. It took them about a month to send me home to my family. I'm buried here now in Elmwood Cemetery, and I'm honored as a hero of Flora and of our country. And even today, Vietnam honors the tunnel rat as America's greatest soldier. I'd like to thank you all for coming out and listening to my story, and have a good evening.
you put no fancy shoes upon my feet, while my brother has got nothing to eat. Don't you dare tell nobody it's just my time. Don't you dare tell nobody it's just my time. Don't you dare tell nobody it was just my time. Going out in a blaze of glory when I die. Won't you help my wife to sing a morning song? Won't you help my wife to sing a morning song? Won't you help my wife to sing a morning song? She will do.